Hi, this is Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog, and I'm here today with a tag video. I am doing the A to Z hot or not tag. This was created by Another Bibliophile Reads, and I was tagged by Melinda at A Web of Stories. So thank you, Melinda. I always appreciate your tags. The idea is it's a quick A to Z list of 26 prompts to get your gut reaction on hot or not. It's just basically your own personal taste. There are no right or wrong answers, but your taste when it comes to books and reading. The idea is just to go fast. A little bit of explanation is allowed, but gonna try for the gut reaction. Okay, ready? Okay, A, audiobooks. Definitely hot. Hot, hot, hot. I love audiobooks. I always have an audiobook going. It's a wonderful way to read more books, and I really enjoy them. B, Bildungsroman. I never know how to say that word. Dealing with a person's formative years or spiritual education. Hot. I always enjoy a coming-of-age story. C is for children's books. Definitely hot. Love children's books. For many years, I reviewed children's books for Family Fun magazine, fabulous magazine that unfortunately went out of print. So for years, that's really how I got my start in book reviewing. We had all kinds of kids' books coming to the house, and my kids and I both just loved it. Loved reading with my kids. So miss those days of reading aloud, which we did a lot of. I don't these days have much of a chance to read picture books very often, but I do still, on my own, read middle grade books. So definitely hot for children's books. D is for digital. I know it's supposed to be hot or not, but I am like right in the middle on this one. So I guess I'll just say hot because I don't mind reading digital books. I much prefer to read print books. So I don't read digital very often. Things have definitely improved since I got an iPad mini for Christmas last year, and I do enjoy reading on that more than my very old Kindle. So it is kind of nice to be able to look things up while you're reading, but generally, they're okay. I prefer print. All right, E is for experimental. I can think of examples of both. I guess I will say not, but there have been experimental books I've really enjoyed. I loved Amy Rosenthal's Encyclopedia of an Ordinary Life. She was a wonderful writer. Dearly missed. That was certainly experimental, and I loved it. On the other hand, while I was reviewing books for, I think this was with Publishers Weekly, we'd get a bunch of books. We could choose whichever one we wanted, read and review it. And typically, once you told your editor what you were reviewing, that was it. But I got partway through this book, and I don't even remember the name of it. It was a German book in translation. It was narrated by the pond in the backyard. So definitely experimental. And I was not really enjoying it, but I was sticking with it until the mother in the book started to have sexual fantasies about her 13-year-old son. And then I was like, nope, I'm out. Described it to my editor, and he said, go ahead and pick a different one. So yeah, that's why generally I would say experimental not, although there have been exceptions. Okay, F for fantasy. Generally not a big fantasy lover. That's my son's area of expertise. He loves the big, epic, classic fantasies. The bigger, the better. He'll read these 16 book, 23 book series like nothing. I don't really enjoy that kind of fantasy. There is a bit of a hot. There are certain books that are set in the real world but have some fantasy elements that I do enjoy. Things like the Harry Potter series, obviously. I listened to one of Teji Kloon's books on audio last year. Can't think of the title right now. I'll put it up here. And loved it. And it was a fantasy view of the afterlife, so definitely some fantasy there, but set in the real world generally. So yeah, that's how that one goes. G for graphic novel, hot, love graphic novels, read them all the time, for kids, for young adults, for adults, excellent. H for horror. So this is another tricky one. Okay, I'll say not, but this is one with exceptions. If you watched my Stephen King tag, you know that we own 35 Stephen King books. I found a couple of more after I recorded that. Certainly, and many of those I have read. His favorite books of mine are his not horror books. So there's some, occasionally, I used to read a lot of horror because I read a lot of Stephen King, Dean Koontz. We inherited my dad's Stephen King and Dean Koontz collection when he died, and slowly making my way through those. But again, my favorites are not horror, but, I can take a little bit now and then. It's not something I seek out. I is for inspirational. Absolutely. I love being inspired, and I do seek that out sometimes. Now, when I'm thinking inspirational, I am not thinking religious per se, but just anything inspiring about nature, about spirituality, about living life to the fullest. Inspirational, definitely hot. J is for journalism, hot, that's great. I love a well-written piece of journalism, especially narrative nonfiction. I've really enjoyed some outstanding journalistic books. K is for kitsch. So the definition given here is different than what is generally the definition of kitsch. And I looked it up to be sure that my thoughts were on the right track. Kitsch is generally described as something that is like garish or eccentric or lowbrow, but can be enjoyed in an ironic way. That's how I think of kitsch. What another bibliophile reads put here for kitsch is has a popular or sentimental appeal. So I guess with that definition, I would say not. I don't go in for a lot of things like cozy mysteries or romances or books about cats. I'm trying to think of things that might be kitschy. So I guess I'll say not, but again, I'm sure there are some exceptions. L is library, hot. I love my library. We have a fabulous library system in Delaware. We can order books from any of the libraries in the whole state, and I make use of it all the time. Libraries are great. Okay, M is for mystery, hot, love reading mysteries, enjoy them very much. N is for nonfiction, definitely hot. I just finished Nonfiction November and read nonfiction all month long. So I enjoy nonfiction. I don't read a lot of it the rest of the year. I think up until November, I had only read, I think, 6 nonfiction books the first 10 months of the year, but I do enjoy it when I read it. O is for omnibus. Not. I guess that means like when a bunch of books in a series are combined into one big volume. I would definitely rather read the individual books than have to manage that hefty volume. P for poetry. If I have to go one way or the other, I'm going to have to say not. And I feel like I should apologize for that. I struggle with a lot of poetry. I've tried. And I'm going to keep trying. But yeah, I've struggled. So one year for National Poetry Month in April, I went to my library, got a bunch of poetry books from famous authors, Walt Whitman, Robert Frost, Maya Angelou. I liked some of Whitman's and Frost's poetry. Wasn't, like horribly drawn to it, but I enjoyed some of it. Loved Maya Angelou's poems. She's a beautiful writer. I would like to read more of Amanda Gorman's poetry, the young poet who recited at Barack Obama's inauguration. And I did. I still keep trying. The Book Cougars, which is my favorite book podcast, run by my friends Chris and Emily. They are always talking about Mary Oliver's poems, and they say she is very nature-based. That's something that appeals. So I did buy a Mary Oliver book of poetry that I will try in April for Poetry Month. So, not, but I keep trying. Q is for quests. When the protagonist goes on a quest, physical or spiritual. Hot. Although keep in mind, I don't really like fantasy that much. So not that kind of quest, not a literal fantasy quest like you find in many fantasy novels. But, a character searching for something, absolutely. R is for romance. Not. Again, I feel as though I should apologize. I have read a few romance novels that I enjoyed. I like the first book in the Brown Sisters series. It was about a woman with chronic illness, so I read it for that reason and did enjoy it. I just don't read a lot of romance. I love running across a love story in another novel. I don't enjoy the predictability of romance generally. Another excellent exception to that is the Matzo Ball. I'll put the author's name up here, which I read last year. Again, I sought it out because it is a rom-com written by a woman not only with chronic illness, but with my chronic illness, MECFS, and her main character has the disease as well. So loved that. Really enjoyed being able to relate to the character. So not with some exceptions. S, science fiction, hot. Love lots of science fiction. So here's the thing. I am not all that into sort of classic science fiction, like space opera type stuff. What I enjoy in science fiction is something that takes our real world and adds something to it. So I guess it's very similar to my feelings about fantasy. I especially love science fiction that plays with time travel, time jumping, manipulating time in any way. But I have also really enjoyed The Sparrow. Fabulous, fabulous book. And that is about a journey through space to visit the first intelligent aliens that have been found. Amazing book. But very thought-provoking. I think that's what I like about science fiction, when it's thought-provoking. Same with the series, the trilogy that starts with Wool by Hugh Howey. Oh, just amazing. Totally different kind of science fiction. It's our world, humans, people, but some sort of apocalypse has occurred and people are living in an underground silo. Just the writing is outstanding and again, very thought-provoking. Okay, I could go on about science fiction all day. This is supposed to be a quickie. T for translation. Books translated from one language to another. Well, I just described to you that horrible German book. Obviously, that was a not. Generally, though, hot for books in translation. I do enjoy reading books written by authors in other places. Love to read books set in other places and learn more about different parts of the world, different cultures. U is for Übermensch, a word I've never heard before. The Superman or the extraordinary human, characters who can do everything. Probably not. I don't read a lot of superhero stuff. I don't read any superhero stuff. Okay. V is for Victorian, literature from 1837 to 1901. Okay, so even a few months ago, I would have said not. Not really into period dramas. Another admission that may make you turn off my channel. Don't really like Jane Austen. I keep feeling like I should give her another chance. I read Emma and was just like, okay. Don't really love the time period generally, but there are exceptions. And what changed my mind recently was I heard someone, maybe Sandy at Miss Reads a Lot, refer to Dickens as a Victorian author. And I was like, oh, I love Dickens. I love Jane Eyre, so there are a few exceptions. Some authors that I really enjoy. Generally, though, Victorians are not for me. I don't seek it out. W for Western. Hot with a caveat. I haven't read an awful lot of it. Really, I think the only Western I've read is True Grit, and I absolutely loved that novel. Now, my husband and I have watched some Western TV shows and movies that lead me to believe I would enjoy other Western literature, and I do plan, I've already, this year I heard about June on the Range, which falls during the summer, during my Big Book Summer Challenge. So I have already decided that for Big Book Summer next year, overlapping with June on the Range, my classic for Big Book Summer will be Lonesome Dove. So I am seeking it out and hope to read more Western literature. X for X-rated. Well, okay, X-rated is by definition hot, but in a different way, right? Do I seek it out? No. I have no problem with sex in novels. I wouldn't necessarily seek out a book that's only sex. I guess erotica. But if I come across some sex and erotica in another book that I'm reading, I'm fine with that. So I guess that's hot. Y for young adult. Hot. Love young adult literature. There are so many amazing books written for young adults, and I love the time period. I love that coming of age time period in a person's life. So I've read lots of great YA this year. And finally, Z is for zeitgeist, the spirit or mood of the times. Hot, sure. I love to be in the zeitgeist. That said, I'm often way behind on reading the latest hottest books. I don't read a lot of new releases, but I eventually get to them, and I do like, reading things that reflect our times that we're living in now. Okay, so that was the A to Z tag. Thank you to Melinda for tagging me, and I just realized I did not choose other people to tag, and I have no idea who's already done this. So I'm going to leave this one open-ended since I know it's been floating around. I've seen it on a lot of channels. If you haven't done the A to Z tag yet, I encourage you to give it a try. Consider yourself tagged. And in the meantime, let me know in the comments down below if you have thoughts on any of these topics.